And we are now recording, and my name is Rick Neville. I am the president of the Austin-Healey Club of New England. I want to welcome you all here. This is something we try to do every month, and we've had some great guests, and we're happy to have Geoff Chrysler tonight. For those of you who don't know Geoff, Geoff is the proprietor of Rightway Heritage Trimming. He does some wonderful work. And I think to start off with, I'm going to see if I can share my screen and show a brief video of what Geoff does. And again, thank you for appearing, Geoff. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. All right. Hi there. My name's Geoff Chrysler, and I love my job. And if you are a classic car enthusiast, then you'll understand exactly why. Let me take you into the shop and show you. It is my absolute pleasure that I get to work on, restore, and reproduce trim for some of the most beautiful cars in history. For as long as I can remember, I've been around Austin-Healey's and have inevitably grown a fascination for their history. I was raised into a life of appreciating the past, how things worked back then, and how to fix, restore, or recreate those things the way they used to, with skilled craftsmanship. My father, Rich Kreisler, was a huge influence on me growing up. From a young age, he introduced me to the worlds of concours-level classic car restoration, as well as fine-scale model building, which to this day remain my two biggest hobbies. Dad started driving and restoring Healys back in the mid-70s and was one of the founding members of the National Healy Concours Committee and Standards in the late 80s. Growing up, we always had a number of Healy projects on the go in the garage, and as I entered the working world, I got into auto mechanics, renovations, and loads of restoration work. Eventually, though, I found my most satisfying passions doing classic auto upholstery and trim. For over 20 years now, I have been working as a distinguished auto trimmer, pattern maker, and upholsterer for some of the leading trim and restoration shops in the world, all the while still specializing in classic British and European auto upholstery. My business name is Rightway Heritage Trimming, and for the past 6 years I have been creating a reputable name for myself here in Victoria, BC. I have also started producing a full line of my own Austin-Healey interior trim kits and components that are the finest quality and the most accurate trim available today. So what makes a Rightway Heritage trim kit stand out against the competition? Well, as a lifelong Healy enthusiast and restorer, I've done my homework in studying the evolution of Austin-Healey trim. We sourced the correct original factory materials and traced the exact pattern variations and when they happened, and offer all the factory color options. Our Big Healy kits are available in every variation of interior trim patterns found as the standard Healy production evolved. Besides my business, Rightway Heritage Trimming, I also maintain a blog site called A Detail Enthusiast, where I routinely write articles filled with hundreds of photos of some of the cars and scale modeling projects I've been working on. There's a section covering the concours restoration I did of my 64 MGB, as well as my current restoration project for my 53 Austin-Healey 100. If you're ever surfing the web for some interesting Healy-related stuff, come check us out. Thank you.
Well, that's a little bit about Geoff, and I wanted to start out. What we usually do is do some questions and answers, and by me, with Geoff answering, and then Geoff has agreed to give us a shop tour. So, and then we can have questions and answers from everyone else who's joined us. Geoff, I don't think we can really talk too much about you unless we talk a bit about your dad.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well,
tell us about him.
Sure. He got right into the Healy world well before I was even born, probably starting in the early 70s. And he met my mom along the way. He had several Healys throughout the 70s and you know, got into a little bit of restoration work towards the late 70s. And I came along in 79. And by that point, my mom, Lynn, and him had gotten married, and they together with a few other people, were the founding members of the Southern Ontario Healy Club chapter in, when was that, 76 or 77, something like that. And so, yeah, right from the time I was a babe in arms, right through, our lives revolved around Healys. And we were going to Healy shows when I was a little kid. I remember some of the early shows. And he got into, you know, starting in the early mid 80s, he started taking on work for other people and doing everything from repairs to full restorations. And so our garage was always full of at least a couple Healys growing up. And he had several growing up. He always just had one at a time, but you know, he'd finish one and then somebody would make him offer he couldn't refuse, and he'd sell it and get another one immediately and get into that one. And he had, you know, BJ8s and BT7s and BN1 and BN2 and many over the years. And lots of restorations for other people, like I say. And of course, in the late 80s, him and Roger Moment and Gary Anderson, some others founded the National Concours Committee. And so he was instrumental in the formation of that, and of course the standards, and always contributing to that. And you know, right through his life, he was always a major contributor, always published numerous articles through the various chapter magazines over the years, and all the online forums. He was always answering questions for people, and just really a key player in the Healy world for the majority of his life. So growing up around that, you know, I got into the Healy, into the cars from a very young age. And he started me off working for him when I was a kid to earn my allowance. You know, I remember being like 8 or 9 years old and getting, you know, given a filthy rear axle to degrease in the driveway, you know, and stuff like that. And so yeah, I was always into it, and always wanted to have my own. And by the time I was 13, I bought my first classic car. I got an MGB when I was 13, and for $500, and started restoring it, and never really got past the metal phase. By the time I was 18, I sold it and moved on with my life. But it was always just a huge passion for me. We were very close growing up. We shared in the same passions, both with the cars and the scale modeling. His other wintertime hobby was building model railway stuff, and to the same standard that he did the Healys. His stuff was all exactly historical accurate, and he would document everything with real photos and recreate these things extremely accurately. And so, you know, I inherited that eye for detail, and always appreciated it. So.
How old were you when you went to your first Healy meet?
Oh, probably, like I say, a babe in arms, and I have no memory, but I remember going to some fall wind-ups as a kid, and in the southern, that was one of the yearly meets we had in Southern Ontario there. And I think the first conclave I went to would have been 89, 88 or 89, when they had it in Niagara Falls, and Jeff Healy was the guest person there. And Dad he debuted his BN1 at that show. And I remember they did there was a news spot, came and did like a little 20-minute thing about Austin-Heelys that was on the news channel a few days later, and they interviewed my father and Jeff Healy at the same time. And I remember he took Jeff out for a drive the one day in his BN1. He was all proud to show it, and Jeff was smoking a cigar at the time, which my father was never a smoker of anything. He was totally gross, you know. And Jeff butted his cigar out in the ashtray in the Healy. And as soon as they got back to the hotel, he emptied it out all in a huff. Like, oh, people were giving him a hard time. Like, those are official Healy ashes. You should keep them. And I remember that.
Well, you mentioned Jeff Healy. You've got a brother too, right?
Yeah, and his name's Donald.
See, what a coincidence, Donald and Jeff.
Yeah, right? Yeah. They swear up and down that wasn't the reason, but no, I think there's
spelling.
Yeah, same spelling, exactly.
Do you think mom and dad ever had any fights over that? I can see trying.
Probably not. Yeah, they swear up and down it wasn't a thing, but whatever.
You know, there's a lot of kids named Shelby too, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
they swear it's not got nothing to do with Cobras or anything like that. We had a conclave here in Sturbridge in 1991. Did you come down for that?
I don't think I was there in 91, no. In fact, I know I wasn't, but because I did go in 92, we drove out as a family. We went to the Breckenridge, Colorado conclave. That was in 92. And that's where he debuted his BN2. Like he had just finished it. It was freshly on the road. The engine was hardly broken in, and we drove it all the way from Ontario to Colorado with Dave Koch and his wife. They had a minivan at the time, and we all kind of rode in the minivan and took turns with who got to ride with Dad in the Healy. And he went and got his gold there in 92. But I remember that trip really well. That was a great trip.
I was a concours judge for Sprites at that Sturbridge conclave, and that's the first time I met your dad in person. And he had, for those who don't know, probably the earliest online presence that we had was the Healy mail list. And your dad was a huge contributor, and as you said, he would answer questions in minutest detail, and he was just so generous to everybody, no matter how dumb their question was or how advanced it was. And he was such a generous guy and such a nice guy. And I know when he passed away, everyone felt such an emptiness and felt so bad that he was this person that you could always go to ask a question, and he'd give you a great answer. And it was a tremendous loss to the Healy Society. So we're also very happy that you carried on the tradition. And at that time, in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of us were a lot younger, and we're bringing our kids to meets, they all got the name of the Healy kids. So I'm sure you were one of the Healy kids that were running around afoot. And some of them learned about Healys, and some probably could care less about them now. But we did get a good group of kids that did that. They had a lot of fun.
Yep.
When did you start working your dad's shop?
Pretty young, like I say, like probably 8 or 9 years old, just degreasing parts and that. And I used to get filthy doing that kind of stuff. And of course, back then we never knew how bad Varsol was. But I remember distinctly being elbows deep in the Varsol tank as a kid, and never thought anything of it. But yeah, and as things evolved, he started giving me more and more things to do. I got into sandblasting once we got a bead blast cabinet. I did a lot of that work, and then painting parts and components, and I'd always help him, bleeding brakes and wiring, and any two-person jobs like putting in an engine or gearbox. I was always there to help him with that kind of stuff. And, yeah.
I always like to say about the chemicals we have available now is that they're not any good unless they can kill you.
Yeah, right.
What did you decide to do automobile work for a living?
Probably, well, it would have been like 2003, I guess. Like I say, I'd always kind of been into it and did a lot of trades work. And when I moved to British Columbia at the age of 22, I wanted to move to the West Coast. It was the thing to do, and I was in love with BC, so I ventured off on my own. And after a few years, you know, I was looking for a new job and not sure what I wanted to do with myself. And it was his suggestion. He said, "Oh, there's this new company in North Vancouver, right by where I live, called Heritage Upholstery, that had just started doing the Healys at that time." And he said, "You should apply there. They know who I am, and I've been helping them with the patterns and that. And just go say you're Rich Chrysler's son and see if you can get a job." So I did, and they hired me on the spot and started me doing like shipping and receiving for the first few months, and then started teaching me the trade of upholstery work. And it just came really naturally. And as it turned out, they needed a lot of help. They didn't really know the Healy stuff very well. They were a Jaguar company that was kind of starting to cover other British cars at the time. And yeah, there was all kinds of stuff they were getting wrong. So I was, I did very
you
well.
have any formal training in upholstery work? Anything like a school or anything like that, or do you just get into it?
I just got into it. I had been around it growing up. I knew Dad's upholsterer back in the 80s and 90s was Martin McGregor, who was really high end. And Martin had actually apprenticed at BMC starting in the 60s. He was one of the original pattern makers for NGBs and that at the time. So he really knew how it was done at Longbridge and Abington, and the materials they used, and his shop was literally just a stone's throw from where we grew up in Ontario. So I remember going to his shop growing up and being quite enthralled with what he did and that side of the whole restoration business. Dad's shop was always so filthy and greasy and loud, and this is quiet and clean, and look at, he had these big posters on the wall. Like Martin had trimmed Goldie in the early 80s. It had been given to him to do, and he had these huge posters of that project and how it was done. And I thought that was just amazing that he had done all that. And so I had
Goldie resided.
What's that?
I'm sorry. Goldie resided here in Maryland.
Yes.
At
Yeah.
Bruce and Anand's shop. I'm here from Maryland. You and I have communicated by email. I'm Jake Krieger.
Oh, right.
Goldie used to sit in the front of Healy Surgeons, right in the window, under cover, and it was resplendent, and nobody really knew what it was. Bruce would tell you, and of course, it's a storied tale.
Yeah,
I've just seen it there. I was just paying a visit to Bruce this last week. It's like it's interesting.
How's he doing? He's my guy.
Doing well. He's soldiering on. I don't know if you know, he was going to close it down. But he's soldiering on for a while. His property, he owns the building he's in, and he still owns it. He thought he had leased it out to somebody else, and that fell through, I think probably because of the virus. So we benefit from that because it's
he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. He's a one-man band with his wife. I actually helped him fasten a steering column in I guess it was a BJ8 the other day, because I happened to walk in and buy a few trinkets, and it's a little hard to fasten a steering column by yourself. So I gave him a hand, and I was proud to do it. Good guy, a shop out of the past. Definitely.
He just completed, I just picked up my BT7 transmission in overdrive from him. He just rebuilt it.
He was talking about you or a transmission.
Yes.
Not in the greatest of.
No, that was a project that I bought, but I will say my first experience with he and his wife Enan, wonderful experience. I would recommend Bruce to anybody, and he'll be somebody else when we lose him. There'll be just a ton loss.
It is
the Healy community.
I'm sure all of us are watching as I'm newer to the Healy realm than the Jag world. I talked to Geoff at one point because I also have an XK120, and he mentioned he cares a lot about them as well. But you're right. I'm watching shops here in this region, and I'm sure all of us on this call have seen this. These little shops are disappearing. And those that are working on the cars those that are still existent are more specialty firms that tend to be, they can price people out. You know, this is still a hobby for a lot of us, and not all.
Bruce is very reasonable in terms of.
Yeah, he is. He is. He sold a lot of his. He had a lot of new old stock stuff and a lot of good used stuff, and it went overseas not too many years ago. But he's still got a lot of stuff.
Okay, let's get back to Jeff for a bit. Jeff, you do Concourse work. Where do you source your materials?
A variety of places. Of course, the Healys have a lot of specific materials like the Armicord and the Carvel carpets and that non-stretch English vinyl that they used, and that all comes from the UK. It's produced in the UK, and that's where I have to get it from. And then, of course, the leather. I've got a couple companies, but they're that are local to BC here, but it all comes from Europe. Germany and Italy, basically, is where the leather comes from.
Is there any such thing as Connolly leather anymore?
Yes.
No, it's long gone.
They're still in existence.
Really?
Yeah, I have their cattle. I met I guess it's the great grandson of John Connolly at Amelia Island. I have a brochure he gave me with leather samples, and they've started reproducing Valmol leather that was used in the Jaguars. I think because of EPA or whatever the equivalent is in the UK, they can't use all the same chemicals, so you may not get that luxurious smell that you get out of the old Jaguar, especially in the saloons when the doors are closed. You step into the Edwardian library, but they're very much in existence. They're very much in existence.
Come back because they were gone for quite a while.
They were, and what he did, I met him, spent quite a while. This was a few years ago now, but they lost a lot of their employees, but he was able to hire them back. And but it's a much smaller staff than it used to be. It used to be a large company, and I'm probably, this is all hearsay because I don't recall the specifics of the conversation, but he at one time had something like 200 employees. And when I met him at Amelia Island, they were working with a staff of about 70, but still a considerable number. But yes, they're still out there.
Huh.
And they had some beautiful color samples there at Amelia. And I was down there after I met him there, and I think they were still, I think he still showed up at Amelia, but I couldn't find the display, so he may not have been there. But I've been online, and they're definitely there, which is good news.
That up, yeah. That's
Check
great.
it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where do you find Carvel carpeting, for example? Does that come out of England?
Yes, yeah, out of the UK.
And it's still the same pattern as the original?
Yep. It only comes, you can only get it in black, blue, and red now. Green is no longer available. So
Would you dye some if someone came up with a spruce green car, or would you try to dye it, or how would you do it?
You can't really dye carpet that's like that extreme of a difference, from blue to green would not really, it wouldn't work. And plus the trying to dye carpet, it makes it a lot harder and more brittle, than it started. It's a tricky process doing carpet and getting it to still feel the same. So for the green, I've been using, I found like a good hog's hair substitute that's very similar to the Carvel, but it's not the Carvel. But
can you go through the step-by-step process of restoring the Healy interior?
Yeah, well, from the time I get material deposit from the customer, I order in all the materials. So the leather, the Armicord, the vinyl, foam. I go and pick up all the birch plywood for all the panels and that, and then get into it. As soon as everything arrives, you know, I kind of break it down into days. You know, one day will be just devoted to cutting everything, cutting all the material all in one day. Another day will be just sewing, binding all of the armacord. Another day will be sewing all the seat covers. Another day will be, you know, a woodworking day where I hand cut all the wood panels, including like for the earlier hundreds and the wood seat frames. I make all that from scratch, and so that'll fill a day. I'll do a day of just woodworking, and then you know, of course, if people are sending me their seats and things to be trimmed, there's usually a day of sandblasting and painting components, prepping things like that, and then a day of trimming, and yeah, so it kind of just breaks down like that until everything's finished. And of course, I supply all the you know, screws and washer sets and carpet snap sets and all that stuff. So I fill up baggies and prep all that, and everybody's got their own shelves here, sort of thing, for each order, and the order hangs there, and I just kind of go through things and check them off as they go, and when it's all ready to go, you ship it all back.
How long does it take from the time that you receive a deposit till the time it's done?
About between 5 and 8 weeks, depending on what they've ordered and if there's shop labor included. So, yeah.
What part of doing interiors do you like the most?
Oh, I really love doing the seats. I really love the sewing, actually. Yeah, the seats are just a huge gratifying thing when it's all finished and you're like, yes, okay, that's great, you know, and you can crack a beer and feel great about what you've done, you know. And in turn, sewing is just, I like sewing because it's something I can just sink myself into, put on the radio and listen to a program, and I can just do that for hours, and I'm sitting down, it's not backbreaking, it's you know, it's like a meditation almost. It's very calming to do, and so I like that.
I remember online fights about people, probably Roger Moment was involved, about how many stitches per inch the Healys had. Do you get into that level of the weeds? Or?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, that's an easy thing, that it's just the turn of a knob on my sewing machine to set the stitch length, and you go from there. And Healy's basically all had one stitch length, so it doesn't move. And
what part of the interior work do you like the least?
Probably installation on cars, like when people bring a car in. There's a lot of wear and tear on the body, climbing around, getting into footwells under the dash and trying to get things perfect. And, you know, at the end of the day, my back is killing me, my knees are killing me. It's, you know, it used to be fun in my 20s, but
doesn't get any easier as you get older. I think
no,
we all let you know that.
Oh, yes, it does. Sure it does.
Tell me, what part of the Healy interior work do you find the most difficult?
Probably the seats or fitting a top and getting it just right is pretty difficult, or can be. And yeah, doing seats can be very tricky.
When you look at another person's work, what's the one thing that stands out? What do you see first that you realize it might not be the best work? Is it the seat?
Generally, yeah. It's the first thing you look at when you look in the interior.
What's difficult about the seats to reproduce accurately? Well, what is it about that seats that make them look incorrect when not done right?
The majority of, sadly, the majority of companies and trim kits available for Healys are not original patterns by any means. They've come up with their own thing that has the general feel of a Healy seat and look, but it's the seat foams that are available, for example, unless it's a BJ8, they're way too big and thick and clunky and hard, and the majority of covers that are available, are either too small for those big foams or too big. They just have the wrong shape. The pleated section in the center is the wrong shape, or the pleats themselves are varying sizes, whereas they should be uniform. And yeah, there's just a lot of just incorrect patterns out there, and it surprises me because it's not that hard to take an original and take it apart and trace it out, and this is what they were. A lot of people take a lot of liberties with what they're producing, and it's
Jeff, this is Ted Cryer. I used to work in an upholstery shop for about 5 years, a classic car shop, and still do Healys on my own. And you brought up the foam, and the foam is a real sore spot. And I was looking at your website, I've looked at it before, and you seem to have really nice foam on the bottom of the seat cushions. They've got the square holes in the bottom like the originals did. And you say they're similar to the Dunlop foams. Are they also fairly soft?
Yeah, and that's what I mean by similar to the Dunlop. I've gone to my foam shop here and brought in an original Dunlop foam, and we just went through everything they had and tried to get something that is the same, density as the Dunlop and feels the same and squishes down the same. And once I had that, then it was just a case of how can I recreate this shape accurately, and that's what I've done.
It makes it a lot easier if the foam isn't too wide, like you said earlier, particularly on the seat backs, to pull it down.
Exactly.
And whatnot. And Moss says that if you order foam, it's a generic set that's going to have to be cut and fit itself. And I've been through that and never do it again. So
yeah, no, it's
I was excited to see your foam.
Yeah.
Jeff, what other kind of cars have you worked on besides Healy's?
Oh, lots of stuff. So I just basically stick to pre-1980 stuff, and I don't do a lot of American, but as far as British and European, you name it, I've done all manner of Jaguars and Healys and MGs and Triumphs and Land Rovers and everything German. I've done all the makes and models of earlier Porsches and Mercedes, and done a couple Ferraris and some really rare stuff. Like I did a 67 Mazda Cosmo once, and I did an Amphicar once. And
Were the seats wet?
yeah, no, the car had suffered a fire, so I had to recreate everything. But I've done a 37 Packard and a 34 Packard, and let me think, lots of stuff. I'm currently working on a 61 AC Ace for a guy, and the same owner a few years ago, he's also got an AC Asica, and I did that interior for him as well. Yeah, so all sorts of stuff.
What's the highest end car you've worked on?
Probably Mercedes. I haven't done a 300 SL. Well, I've done seats for a 300 SL before, which is probably the highest end. I've done a couple 190 SLs and 220 and 280 and 230 SLs. And I've done a couple Ferrari Daytonas and a Dino. And yeah, and of course, the Packards are really, a lot to those. That 37 Packard I did was major projects. Very lucky.
Have you won any awards?
Oh yeah, well those cars have won awards. Yeah. Some of my work has been at Pebble Beach and places like that. Yeah.
Jeff, I've always been curious. Do you work alone or do you have apprentices?
Yes. No, I work
alone.
Yeah.
With the radio.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm amazed that you can offer turnaround that is in the weeks and not months.
Yeah, well, it's, I just do the Healy stuff at the moment, and
Yeah.
whatever small smattering of local clients I get, which is 5 or 6 a year. And so yeah, this is kind of my mainstay, is doing the Healys.
Has your business been better or worse during COVID?
It's actually picked up some during COVID. I think a lot more people have been doing work on their cars with all the time off, and of course Zoom conversations like this have really helped get the word around who I am, and it's helped a lot.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on an interior that is original in pretty nice condition versus a new interior that is updated?
I being kind of an originality nut, I really like to try and hold on to the original as long as you can. I think it depends on how often you're driving that car. I think the best option is, if you're using it a lot and you've got an all original interior, most of the interior you're not going to be touching too much, other than the seats and maybe the front floor mats. So you get some nice over mats to protect the floor mats, and maybe get a second set of seats done new that you can use as you're driving, and keep your old ones, wrapped up on a shelf so that they're preserved. You can show them at shows or whatever,
Yeah.
because this original stuff is disappearing more and more all the time, and it's really nice to see it when you can. And
Yeah.
I've certainly done, that's another thing I do offer, is I've done a lot of repair jobs and careful cosmetic surgery to try and bring back original, and a little
Yeah.
bit of custom dyeing here and there to try and preserve it.
Yeah, well, that's the only problem I have with my seats, are where they're connected with the chrome nut that connects the back to the seat. There's a little section right there that is upholstered as an add-on piece to the back.
Okay.
Where it bolts on.
Yep.
That wears, because when you sit, you rub your hiney against that piece all the time when you get in, and that
Right.
piece is worn out. But I think that's a separate piece.
Yeah.
It's like a glove that slides over it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have to replace that. But other than that, there's no rips or tears in the
Right.
interior, in the original interior, although the carpets have been changed.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Jeff, is there one restoration that you've done that you're particularly proud of?
There's several. They just keep getting better all the time. To be honest, it's true. Like, I'm improving all the time, and at the same time, I'm getting offered more and more interesting, cars and projects to do. The one right behind you was great. That was a fun one to do. Let me think. There's been some pretty good ones. I recently did, or last year I did a guy's. One year I had like 2 original teal blue 56 BN2s, and that's a rare color. It was only offered for
It's the same color I have.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And yeah, that rare teal interior, I got 2 sets of seats in a year from all original that, my dad had restored a car like that in 92 and tried to recreate this, and nobody believed him that this was even a real color. And here it is, now I'm getting the real thing, a double dose of it. And that was a really fun project to do. And
Your dad had a Coronet cream car too, didn't he?
Cream? No.
Coronet, he never had a Coronet cream BN1?
He owned briefly a Coronet cream, and that's the one that Michael Salter's finishing right now, that Alan Segrist bought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had that briefly, and then he got bought out by Alan Segrist. Said, "I want that car." So, but okay, here you go. So
I get a question that you don't have to answer unless you want to, but how much would a complete interior cost with top hood?
they're around 10, usually around 10 grand. That's Canadian dollars, so a little less for US. Yeah.
Does that include a new top, a new hood as well, or no?
Yes. Yeah. New top. Yeah. Doesn't include any installation or shop labor or anything. That's just for all the kits and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question I have, what do you see of the future for our British cars?
Well, you know, it's really hard to say because the way I see it, there's a lot happening in the Healy world right now with, you know, you look at like even right here on the island where my Healy is right now, little shop called Jetstream Auto and Custom, and they've kind of started specializing in Healys, and there's my car in there and there's 6 other Healys in there right now. And there seems to be a huge boom in the Healy restoration world. I don't know if it's just I'm more aware of it because of social media, but it seems like there's a lot going on around the world. You look at places like the Cape and JME Healys and all this, you know, and they're just an auto farm and they're just loaded with stuff at all the time. So it's looking pretty good. And of course, all the products and stuff that you can get now that wasn't always available. Now, I won't speak for quality of all that stuff, but it seems like there's more and more available all the time. So it's looking pretty, I think, good for the Healy world, although we'll see with the whole, what happens with the gas and environmental change and everything like that. I certainly, well, this company, Jetstream, where my car is getting its metal and paint, right now they're working on a first of its kind. There's a guy building up a BN6. They got a new chassis frame in and all new aluminum body panels from AH Spares, and they're basically building up a new car, a BN6 there, and it's going to be electric. And they got a motor and a full kit just up island here. And this guy's making an electric BN6. And who knows, that may turn into a new trend. You know, it's already happening in other, you know, circles, certainly with the Porsches and stuff like that. That's already a big thing that's happening. So
And that's funny you say that. I was talking to Roger Moment the other day, and he was saying that he would like to do an electric Healy. Now, the last person in the world I ever thought would want to do an electric Healy would be Roger Moment.
wow.
Is he here tonight? I don't think he is he?
I don't think so.
I'm going to miss the oil leaks if they do that.
Yeah.
Well, and the Healy sound.
The sound.
If you go here in Brantford, Connecticut, you have the Pagai. It has already an electrical model.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, I'm gonna take another shot at sharing the screens and show some of your work before you start on your tour. Let me see if I can do this effectively, or even slightly effectively.
Jeff, can you hear still?
Yep.
Well, here's the screen. I'll ask him that.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to handle this. So Jeff, if you wanna, you know, like I said, it all worked well in the pre-production meeting, but somehow when the rubber meets the wall, it doesn't quite work. Do you want to start your tour?
Sure. I don't have a huge shop, so it probably won't take long, but I'll give you the grand tour. So I'll turn the screen around and you tell me if you can't see your
new digs.
Yeah. So this is the main production area. You can see my sewing table. And bandsaw, this is where I do all the woodworking, sort of in this corner. Of course, every time I do woodworking, I clean everything thoroughly immediately after, try and keep it all clean and organized. This is just where all my tools and that are and supplies. My air compressor's in that box there. This is my main cutting table. I keep all my materials and that underneath and do all my cutting of leather and supplies. And this is where I do the majority of the trimming at this table. Coming around back here, I've got lots of rolls of foam and underfelts, and that's my paint and chemicals cabinet there, and all the various Furflex door seals and rubbers and all that kind of stuff. And of course, this is all customer shelving here. So every shelf is a different customer, different project. Lots of Healys on the go, mostly all Healys. Here's a
An XK120 set of seats.
that's for a 150 actually. We're doing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that car will be coming in here in a few months actually to have me install everything on it. The rest of its interior is all down there on the bottom shelf. Yeah, here's a BN1. I just made this tonneau cover today, and it's got the lightning zipper that I supply with all my tonneau covers. And there's some original seats from a BN2 that Reed Trummel's working on right now. It's got the persimmon piping there, and he wants me to just change out the foams but keep the original covers. So lots of stuff like that. There's some early NGB seats I made the other day. I'm making a panel kit as well for that guy. All kinds of stuff. This is doing a 38 Aston Martin up at Jetstream. I'm Jetstream's upholsterer, so whatever they've got on the go, I do. So I get lots of, that's where I get my variety of stuff from them. A couple BJ8s. This is a BN4. It's going to Australia. Here's the rest of this BN4 stuff. Of course, on the wall here, this is all my hundreds of patterns for all the marks of Healys, and well, there's all kinds of stuff up here too. There's lots of other cars as well, but it's mostly Healys. Of course, I got my own little private bathroom here. All my samples, I got loads of sample catalogs all lined up along the bottom there for everything: carpet, leather, vinyl, everything. And I'll take you downstairs. I just moved into this shop in February, so it's still brand new. I'm still adding flooring to the stairs. Here's some examples of various cars I've done. Of course, here's the scale model car collection. These are all cars that I've built and painted and detailed myself. I'm not into the die cast thing. I like to build them. This is
carry over from your father.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. This is my this whole shelf is my collection of Healy models I've built. That's all. They're all using that old Revell kit that came out in the 60s. And I modify it to make the S's, and there's a BN1 that I did out of it. And
Those are for sale as well?
they're not for sale, no. You can send me a model and I'll build it up for you, though.
Well, could be a Healy Silverstone.
For sure. There you go.
Okay, we have a deal. Thanks.
This is the main shop where cars are. There's an old Bedford truck that my guy that I share the unit with, he uses just the back third of the shop for car storage.
You know, he just raised a great idea of offering to build models
Yeah.
for Healy owners. I'm going to tell you, you can make a hell of a lot more money building models for us egomaniacs than fixing up our upholstery. Seriously.
With all
The first one is for me, please remember.
I mean, I want to be number two. I want to be number two. Build me a model. Come on.
Got a couple of Revell XK120s in the box.
Yeah, right on.
But that's a Revell.
That's
not this guy.
That's this kit right there.
I
The 120.
can't see it. Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Show me a picture. I'll build you a model. Oh, that's a moneymaker.
There you go.
$100 a piece.
There you go. Yeah, for sure.
Is that out of your Healy?
This is I was just gonna say, this is my BN1, the engine all built up, and there's the gearbox on the floor, all freshly rebuilt. Just waiting for the car, and some of my favorite Le Mans cars on the wall. And of course, here's all the rest of my Healy parts all ready to go. There's my dashboard.
Nice. Have you been watching the Healy channel?
Somewhat, yeah.
Gentleman named Carl in Luxembourg, I think.
Yeah, he's doing that Coronet cream car.
Yeah. Interesting guy.
Yeah.
A different approach than yourself as far as details and originality.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Trying to return the car to service, but a good thing to watch, I think.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, for sure. It's good to, get another one on the road. So all the power to him.
And Coronet cream as well.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. He's bringing light to a rare color. It's nice.
Not
And,
my favorite
and
color,
Jeff-
but-
Jeff, you probably saw though that poor Carl, he had a tough time with the seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember.
He struggled with the seats.
I haven't seen that episode yet. Huh. Okay.
Hey, Jeff, can you see what I'm showing? I figured out how to share some of your work. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
You want to describe that one?
Yeah, that's a BJ8 phase 1 BJ8. So it's got that early cubby box armrest. And so
Beautiful.
for BJ8s only, of course, the only thing I can't do myself is the embossing on the seats. So for that, I farm that out. I get that from John Skinner, actually. And he sends me just the embossed raw pieces, and I can still sew them up. He also supplies me with that chrome piping.
Yeah,
So
are these seats leather or are they vinyl?
those are vinyl seats with the embossing.
Okay.
Yeah, the leather never had the embossing. It was just plain. So
Yeah, I've seen people try to do the leather with embossing. It looks very strange.
it's
I think what's interesting is you pointed out the chrome trim. So many of the cars, people see it and think it's gold.
yeah, it fades out to that with age. Just the sun bleaches the clear plastic. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for the shop tour, and I am going to stop sharing here.
All right.
And I'm going to throw it open to questions from the audience. I'm sure we've got a bunch of them. So who would like to go first?
I would like to show Jeff a Valmont Connolly leather catalog. I found it as we were talking to prove they still exist. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you can read the front of it.
Yeah. Can you send me like an email or a text with their contact information?
Yeah, it says on the back, Connolly, www.connollyleather.com.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
You
and
have,
then this
you
is
have
another
presents.
brochure.
Huh.
I don't know how much detail you can see, but
This must be so recent because,
It's-
7 or 8 years ago, I looked them up and there was nothing available.
yeah, I'll have to say it's probably, I wasn't able to go last March. I was there the March before. And I think it was probably 3, maybe 4 years ago, he was there. And
Wow.
I worked,
Great.
I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I worked in the motion picture business. And we got into film restoration. So we sort of connected because we were talking about old technologies that are to utilize for newer materials and
Right.
to bring things back to life.
Yeah.
We sort of connected on, even though dissimilar careers, we connected on this ability to resurrect, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting guy. Older than you, but younger than I am.
Huh.
Any more questions from the group?
Yeah, hey Jeff, I'm David from Bug Eye Guy in Connecticut. I really admire your work. Thank you.
Admire yours. I follow you on
Like your
Instagram.
Healy, the BN2 you had.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I have a question for you about foam.
Sure.
Because we're constantly trying to get the foam right. And it's a very difficult thing because especially since we're chasing an old beat up piece of foam to match the original stuff. Have you found a good way? I mean, you said you went to your local foam guy. All you find in our local foam guy is big yellow chunks of the wrong density closed cell foam. I was wondering how you've been kind of getting that right.
I am just purchasing big chunks, like you're saying, but it is this kind of stuff, you know, and then I literally laminate it and cut it to shape.
A lot of the Sprite foams are molded. They're somehow poured in them. I don't know if they're making them in China or what, but
Yeah.
have you found that for big Healy foams as well?
The same deal as far as what's available from other companies. That seems to be what everybody's doing. Is it's that molded latex foam, and it's too hard, and it in the end, and often, like I say, too big of a shape. It doesn't. It's not the right size in the end. So.
Have you been blending different density foams when you're laminating the foam that you just showed?
Not really. I do, not really, no. Sometimes for cushions, I will add a little bit of wadding around the front like the originals did. But other than that, the foam itself is all the same density. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
What materials are you finding to be extinct or becoming extinct? What are the most difficult materials for you to source?
Well, like I was saying earlier about the Carvel, it's becoming harder and harder to get. Like 7 or 8 years ago, you could still get green. That's been a recent one to go extinct. And I've, you know, my suppliers in England have even said like it's getting harder for them. They're doing less and less runs of it. So once it runs out, it might be a year before they do another run of it. So that's one that I'm kind of hope we can still get it, you know, next year.
Do you buy in bulk? Well, that
yes,
kind of thing, or you think about buying in bulk?
a little bit. I usually get, you know, enough for the next couple cars, but that's about as much bulk as I can do at one time at this point. Yeah, that, and of course the Armacord is the other thing. It seems to be okay for now, but certainly some of the colors that were original to Healy's are totally unavailable and require custom dyeing to get right. Like the green is a good example, and the teal is another, and you know, which is no problem. I've got those colors down pat. I've got good examples, and actually I work with a company here in Victoria that dyeing is all they do. Upholstery dyeing is all they do, and they do really good work. And I can give them a whole roll of material and just say I want it this color, and they'll do it really professionally, and it's really good quality dye jobs. It's not going to crack or flake. That works for most things. Like I did a green interior a year or so ago for Kurt Arndt, and of course the green Armacord was custom dyed. He gave me a roll of green Carvel, but it was the wrong shade of green, so I had to dye.
You put something like that on your site?
Yes, I did. I did an article about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only thing we didn't do correctly on that is the Everflex for the top and tonneau cover. Just because, and I could go and get that dyed the right color, but I don't trust that to stand up doing dye on weather equipment, because it stretches. You're using it, you're folding it up and down, it's out in the sun, it's out in all the weather. It's going to start to crack and flake, you know, in a few years. I'm sure of it. So I don't want to risk it with Everflex. Anything else I would, no problem. But Everflex being a non-porous thing, it's not going to stand up for the test of time. So yeah, that's another one. Everflex doesn't come in that green. So yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned this, and I know David brought it up a minute ago. This is with Sprites particularly. I have a very early green bug eye, very little mileage on it, trying to replace bits and pieces, make up a panel. And I've written away to Auto Farm and to Woolies to try to get samples sent to me. And do you feel that if someone sends you something green that needs repair, because I know you mentioned you do repair, the question is that something you feel confident that you'd be satisfied with when it's done?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And the other half of that is the Vinide, the non-stretch Vinide you mentioned early on. Of course, the bug-eye dashboards were covered with that material. And I have had a real problem with finding a glue that stands up in direct sunlight. You know, the cars sit outside and the sunlight works on them. The next thing you know, you've got puckers starting to show up around gauges and so on and so forth, where the glue is loosened up. Have you got any recommendations that, I don't want you to give away trade secrets, but is there something available that you feel confident that someone could make a panel or repair a dashboard with?
Well, I can recommend the glue that I use. It's all about using the right kind of industrial grade glue. And
Yep.
I really, the aerosol spray glues that you can get are no good. They will
Yep.
not last, and people swear by them, and they're not. I really recommend people stay away from that. The stuff
I agree.
the industry standard for upholstery and trimming is this stuff. The
Weldwood, yeah.
Weldwood, DAP. This stuff is really good. It's designed specifically for heat. It gets stronger with heat. So
I can't quite read that. Can you use?
Yeah.
Weldwood.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Contact adhesive. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it regulated, or can anybody buy it?
You should be able to buy it. Yeah, you can Google it and find sources locally
Yeah,
that
I'm
sell
familiar
it.
with the name.
Yeah.
I saw it on Amazon.
Yeah.
I think they sell it on Amazon.
And the thing with this is it's spray grade, so you've got to get yourself, you got to use it with a compressor and a spray gun like this.
Yep.
So
Excellent. Thank
I've
you.
used the Weldwood you can buy in the hardware store, and very successfully. Sometimes it's a son of a gun to get it apart once it's set.
yeah, well, exactly. You're not supposed to be able to.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
So Jeff, does that mean you're soon going to be selling bug-eye rubber floor mats?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, Jeff, I just had the leather redone in my car. I'm sorry, I'm out here on the East Coast, so I couldn't come out to see you. But it's my understanding that the leather has a finish on it today. And as such, what can you put on there to treat it or to keep it in good shape? It seems to me the things I've tried, it doesn't saturate the leather. The finish prevents it from saturating. Is that correct? Or what would you recommend to periodically put on the leather?
I recommend just any good hide food, like leather conditioners. And there's any number of manufacturers or types that you can use. Try to avoid heavy chemicals or things that are alcohol based or things like that. You don't want anything no petroleums of any kind. You want to avoid that kind of stuff because it actually shines it up in the moment, but it evaporates and it dries it out in the long term. And you want something that's, avoid all petroleum based things. Other than that, some leathers you get, you're saying has a shine or a sheen on it. That may be because they've been dyed from the manufacturer. They were originally tanned, but then it's been dyed a specific shade. And that can create a slight barrier that, your hide food just sits on the top. So, and that's just all about, knowing that when you're choosing your leather, does this look like it has has this been dyed secondarily to its original manufacturer, or is this the original tanning?
If it has that finish on it, then are you wasting your time trying to put the hide food on it?
I wouldn't say wasting your time, but yeah, no, you're not wasting your time. It'll penetrate eventually, but it's just gonna be thicker. You got to work it in more, basically.
Yeah. What about cleaning vinyl? I mean, I don't know. How do we keep that vinyl in condition?
Again, avoid chemicals. Just mild detergent, soap and water, and just I usually just wipe it down with like a tack cloth or something like that is really good. It'll grab the dirt and pull it away. But yeah, try to avoid chemicals, try to avoid anything that's going to give it a shine, because that's going to sit on there and create more problems later. And actually, it's interesting, if you look at your original owner's handbooks for these cars, they say for cleaning the interior and stuff, you use a heavy bristle brush and just routine brush it all out. And that works. It works quite well for cleaning carpet, even vinyl and topping. Majority of it is just dust and dirt that settles, and you can just scrub it out and avoid all the chemicals together.
So no Armor All.
No, stay right away from that stuff. That stuff is no good.
It works well on rubber pieces, like.
Yeah, rubber pieces. Yeah, yeah.
By the way, do you have the stencil for the part number on the top cooling hose of your BM1? Remember you were trying to get on your blog site, you were talking about stamping
for the red hose? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't have it yet. No.
Well, if you come up with it, let me know. I have an original wrapped hose I'd like to stamp that number on.
I've been thinking about it, and I'm either going to go have a stamp made and then offer it for other people, or I may just, with all this modeling that I do, it's not that big of a deal to just cut it out of masking tape and then airbrush it or whatever, and then it's done, So
all in the details.
Yeah.
More questions?
Geoff, can I just interrupt, Rick? Olwen from Australia. Geoff mentioned that he's got a customer, he's done trim for a customer in Australia.
Yes.
Would you be prepared to tell me where in Australia that is, or the name of the guy?
Yeah, Vince at Platinum Smash Repairs.
Oh yeah, I know Vince Cesario in Sydney.
Yeah. And I had done a couple jobs for George Goodair.
Yeah. Both those guys are in Sydney. I'm in Queensland. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Geoff, one more quick question from David here about attaching seat covers. Have you got any tricks for pulling down seat covers and keeping them secure? Because I know on the Sprites, a lot of times we're making tack strips. And improvising, because the patterns are probably not nearly as good on the Sprite stuff as what you're making.
Right. Yeah, no, I do the original, the press-on clips.
Yep.
Like you say, and they just go along that bottom flange. I just follow the original. You can get those clips new from a number of places. I order them from Bresco Hardware out of the UK.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, we have hundreds of them. We use them all the time.
Bresco's a good company.
They are. They're really good. Roger Ramon turned me onto those, and you can get all sorts of really good hardware like that from them.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Geoff, do you still have any persimmon color for the BN2s and ones?
Yep. I just sent the full finished kit of that to Auto Farm last week.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I've got, let me see if I got some of the vinyl here. Or some of the leather. But anyway, yes, I do.
I have a teal blue persimmon question.
Yep.
Teal blue, as you and I have discussed by email, faded to a kind of a bright blue, and then the vinyl and armor cord faded to a grayish blue.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is the state of my car. And I have emailed you. I met you after I met your father by email some years ago, and he was very helpful, as you stated earlier on. That's what he did so well.
Right.
I have a friend named John Wright who I've encouraged him to reach out to you. He's in California, not too far from Santa Barbara, and I think he did reach out to you. And he has a set of persimmon seats, which are in better shape than my teal blue seats. And I believe they will perhaps respond to restoration. But I think you mentioned that persimmon actually was originally more of a red color, and it fades to that. Was it? It was kind of an orange red, and it just fades to persimmon.
You can see here. This is what I'm if you can see the color. But yeah, it was an orangey red, you know, and as it gets older, it gets oranger and oranger. It fades lighter and lighter, more of a mandarin color.
Yeah, that's what his are. They're very intact, as I recall.
Right.
He's the one that got me into Healy, so I damn him whenever I can. But
yeah. Well, Dad and I did a car years ago in Ontario. It was one of the last cars he restored, actually. It was a black BN1, and it had all of its original persimmon interior, including...
That's what my friend's is. It's a black BN1 with a M kit on it that they bought over the counter. It's all documented before they actually made the 100M.
Yep.
It's the second kit they ever sold.
Oh, wow. Yeah. But yeah, we did that. He restored the car to concours condition, and I got to go through all of its original interior and just clean it all. And you could see, you know, especially bottoms of seats and areas under the dash that didn't get the sunlight, and the difference of, oh, this really was like a bright red that's gone orange, you know. But it is an orangey red. There's always been orange in it, but yeah, it certainly turns into a mandarin color as it gets older. And I'm sure that's why they changed it out in 55 with the darker red that didn't have as much of a fade problem.
And I think the teal blue, same thing. It lasted a year or 6 months.
Yeah,
the color scheme.
Yeah,
it was a short run.
Yeah.
Jeff, when do you hope to have your car ready?
Hopefully by the end of the year, I'm assuming. I was in just on Friday, and it's in the paint booth right now in finished primer, and they're just tweaking a few more things, and they said I should have it back, the chassis at least back, probably in about a week.
Are you doing any more postings in the metal work? Have you been documenting it?
I have. I've been documenting it. I haven't put anything on my blog yet. I just haven't had the time, but there hasn't been a huge amount of change. Like, it was already almost there. They just haven't done much to it over the last few months. They've been busy with other things, but now they're back on it. And like I say, it should be back in next week or so. So I'm pretty excited.
Well, Jeff, we'd love to have you come to Enclave. We're going to have the 70th anniversary, the third week in September in the Poconos. And we're calling all 100. So we'd love to have you join us.
Wish mine would be there.
Is that this September or next September?
Next September 2022.
Oh, for sure I will be there.
Where in the Poconos? What?
We're going to be at the Kalahari in the Pocono Mountains. And it's a third week in September. So it's Enclave 2022, celebrating Earl's Courts Motor Show of 52.
I bought my BN2 out of the Poconos about 7 years ago.
Great. We'll bring it up.
I don't think so. Maybe. I'm one guy.
All right. Before we go any further, before we close, first of all, I see Mariano down there. And Mariano's got some very interesting news if he's willing to share.
Sorry, I'm looking here for the mute. No, it's just some news that I got 2 weeks ago that I got accepted for the Mille Miglia in June. So I hopefully, if COVID allows, I will be able to drive the 1949 Healy Silverstone that currently is across the ocean. There in June is from 16 to 19. So hopefully then I could come back with the stories and pictures. And then I was just driver. I'm convincing my wife to go. This is a kind of a, let's say, after 32 years together, I think that's a nice
way it ended up.
And then I was just chatting with Alwyn because this Healy Silverstone that is called D5 because it's the chassis 5 out of 51. I was contacted by YouTube from a former owner, the guy that bought it in 1961 in Europe, toured it for 6 months and then sent it to Australia. The guy owned it for 25 years, Jan Anderson, from down there in Victoria, then sold it to another Australian, Paul Samuelson, and only then went to Europe. So I have pictures of D5 with Donald Healy himself in a coffee and cars there in Australia in 1977. So very nice history of the car. Hopefully one day we can share it a bit more in depth.
Congratulations.
That's
Yeah.
great. Huh.
Mariano, I'll try to find out a little bit more information about that car. Paul Samuels, as I said in my message, is very well known in historic racing. Not so much in Healey's, more Lotuses. But being a Silverstone, as I said, they're quite rare, or very rare in Australia. So somebody will know something about it. Patrick Quinn in Sydney will know about it, I'm sure.
Let's connect through email. I can share a few pictures that the guy sent me, and it's amazing because he came out of the blue through YouTube with a small message. I used to own that D5, and he started to send pictures. Amazing. I even received a call at 2:00 in the morning once from Australia. The guy willing to talk, and then I said, "Is the D5 owner? I need to talk to him."
Are any of the instruments on the Silverstone square? Any of the gauges square?
No.
I have a Smith's gauge that was identified maybe 30 years ago as coming from a Healy Silverstone. It's still in the Smith's box. And I've never, any pictures I've seen, I've never seen a square instrument in one.
No, I cannot put it here because I have it in the computer, but I see even the picture from the 80s from D5 and are all circular.
Yeah, it's I should put some shots out there and see if somebody can identify what this thing comes from.
It might be out of another Healy.
I don't think, well,
Like
maybe an
Abbott or
early car. That
like a Sportsmobile or something like that. They made a wide variety of cars.
Yeah, I realize that. Any photos I've ever seen of any Healy interiors, I look at, and I've never seen this. I haven't even seen the instrument myself for probably 5 years. It's stuck away in a crawl space somewhere, but it is new old stock, and it's probably unique in its own way, but I have no idea what it fits.
Peter, I'm going to ask you to do some updates of the next technical conference call, Newport Summit and Enclave.
Yes. So our monthly technical call is the second Monday of each month. So we'll be on Monday, April 12th, 7 p.m. If you go onto our homepage at hca-newengland.com, I update the homepage with all the most recent events coming up for the club. So look forward to joining us. So that will be in 2 weeks on September 12th. And again, we have a wide variety of folks coming and speaking there. David Silvercloud has been on before. He talked about his electric bug eyes, the 2 different ones that he built a couple of years ago. And so we look forward to your questions for that. As it relates to Summit, we're cautiously optimistic. As Mariano talked about COVID in terms of what's going on for the Mille Miglia, the 3rd week in September is Healy's at Newport, and we've got a great event planned there. We will have Donald Osborne will be our special guest on Wednesday. We'll also be going to the Audrain Museum as well as the Newport Car Museum. So we've got a great event. 3rd week in September. We have 72 registrations for that already, and we are cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to hold that event. We may be wearing masks, but we're cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to have the event. And then as Rick also pointed out, so also the 3rd week in September, but of 2022, we'll be celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Austin-Healey at the Kalahari, the Poconos. We'll be at Pocono Raceway. You'll be able to do parade laps at Pocono Raceway. Those who are interested in cars with a little more speed than a Austin-Healey, you can do the Healy Drive, the NASCAR experience there as either a passenger or as a driver and get 10 laps around Pocono Raceway. So we think we'll have a great event there. We're doing this in partnership with the Austin Sports and Touring Car Club, the New Jersey chapters. So that is the 3rd week in September. Please go out and check the website at www.enclave2022.org. and we continue to have updates as it relates to that. So those are the three things that are going on in our world over the next 2 weeks, and then in September of 2021, and then September of 2022.
Also, Pete, don't forget that we'll be in Carlisle, New England region. We'll be represented in Carlisle, PA, May 14, 15, and 16th at the annual show for British import and performance cars. If any of you live in that area, want to come out, you've never been there, it's a great venue to come out to. There's a great car show on Saturdays. There's all kinds of events going on for performance cars. Learn to rip the wheels off your car if you want to. Lots of parts, a lot of things for sale. It's a 3-day event, and again, that's May 14 through 16. And if you've never been there, it's certainly worth the trip, especially if you're looking for parts, or if you've got something to sell. Stop by in the New England region tent, and we'll put them out there for you.
I will see
And
you
Steve-
there. I usually am there.
Steve, make sure you tell them to bring their rain gear.
No, there has not been rain for the last
We're
5
good at
years. We don't need your kind. You're the one who needs to stay home so we don't get the rain.
One year I was there, it was snowing in
I
May.
agree. I've been there in a tornado. What are you going to do?
Now, our next AHBS call is going to, for those of you who grew up like I did reading Hot Rod magazine, we are working on having 2 guests. One is Mr. Norm Cowdery, and for any of you who've ever seen the pictures of a green Austin-Healey doing with a blower sticking out of the front and doing wheel stands, that was driven by Norm Cowdery, and he later became a vintage racer of rather big size Can-Am cars. He will be one guest, and he's the West Coast guy. The East Coast guy is going to be represented by Bob Ida, who is famous for driving the Healy drag car. So we're going to talk a little bit about old-time drag racing and what it's like to drive a Healy at 170 miles an hour down a drag strip. And now, admittedly, there's not much Healy left by the time that these guys get done with it, but it should be a lot of fun. So that will, depending on what their schedules are, I will let you all know through various Facebook and emails, etc., when that's going to happen. We've recorded this conference. As soon as Zoom makes it available to me, I'll upload it on our YouTube channel and search for the Austin-Healey Club in New England YouTube channel, and you'll see this meeting along with a bunch of other meetings that we've had in the past. And Jeff, I want to thank you very much. You've been a most entertaining guest, and we really learned a lot, and really appreciate it. You've done great work for the hobby, and it's something I think that we're all thankful for, that people are still keeping that degree of originality still out there. So thank you very much for participating.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to talk to you guys.
And Jeff, if we want to get in contact with you, what's the best way? Through your website or email or?
Yeah, you can email me. Email is on the website, and anytime. You can call me anytime. Yeah.
I have a real quick question, one that enters our minds, all of our minds. You're a fairly young person, and most of us are not. Do you see younger people getting intrigued with what you're doing and the cars you're specialized in? Some people that might carry the flame onward?
Not a lot. Like it's pretty rare to find, but they are out there, and occasionally, I do run into people who are just like, I want to do what you do, and yeah, they're out there. They're out there, but it's not common. It is a fading flame for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, all. Thank you very much, and to all, good night. Stay healthy.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much for
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Good night.
Cheers.
Faces with names now. Names with faces.
Thanks, Rick.